You're asking me now because you're older, and because you think time makes things safer to talk about. That's not how it works. Time doesn't soften these cases, it strips away the distractions. I kept this one quiet because it didn't need embellishment, it didn't need interpretation. Everything about it was already clear once you accepted what kind of person we were dealing with. I retired 3 months after it ended. Officially, it was my choice. Unofficially, I understood that if I stayed, I'd start seeing this case in places it didn't belong. This is the most disturbing investigation I ever worked. Not because of what he did, but because of how little effort it took him to do it. The first victim was a woman named Claire Holloway. 29, graphic designer, lived alone. No criminal history, no domestic disturbances, no known enemies. She was found after her upstairs neighbor noticed water leaking through the ceiling. When patrol arrived, they found her on the bathroom floor. No visible trauma, no overturned furniture, no signs of panic. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death as asphyxiation, but couldn't determine intent. No bruising consistent with strangulation, no ligature marks, no toxicology findings. Cases like that happen more than people realize. They don't make the news. They don't trigger task forces. They get filed, categorized, and quietly closed. I reviewed the report briefly, signed off on it, and moved on. If I had stopped longer, I might have noticed a detail that would come back later. Her shoes were lined up beside the bathtub. The second victim was Ronald Price. He was 43 and divorced. He lived in a furnished short-term rental while his house was being renovated. Found in the same condition, same lack of disturbance, same medical ambiguity, just a different location, different demographic. But when I walked the scene, the air felt wrong. Not tense, not chaotic, but controlled. The furniture was aligned, the counters wiped down, and the trash emptied. This wasn't a sudden death scene. It was a finished one. His shoes were placed beside the couch. That's when I went back and pulled Claire Holloway's photos. Same placement, same orientation. I still didn't say the word pattern, but I could feel it forming. The third victim forced our hand. Emily Rourke, 21, college student. Shared housing, but home alone for the weekend. Found by her roommate Sunday night. No forced entry, no defensive wounds, but same positioning, same stillness, same shoes. At that point, coincidence stopped being a reasonable explanation. I took lead. Not because I wanted to, but because once you see something like that, you don't forget how it looks. Most serial offenders escalate. They leave more behind. They get sloppier. They start to push boundaries. But this guy didn't. Each scene showed improvement, less trace, fewer uncertainties, and more efficiency. He wasn't improvising. He was refining. And the most unsettling part was this. None of the victims showed signs of panic until the very end. And that told us something important. They didn't realize that they were in danger. We rebuilt the victims last week's minute by minute. Calls, emails, appointments. There was no shared social circle, no shared workplace, no shared routine. What they did share was access. Each one had recently interacted with someone performing legitimate work. Maintenance, utility inspections, temporary services. Someone who belonged in their space. Someone who didn't trigger alarm. People like to believe that they'd fight back, that they'd sense danger early. That belief isn't supported by evidence. We're trained to comply with perceived authority, especially quiet authority. This killer didn't threaten, he instructed. He didn't rush, he waited. By the time the victims understood what was happening, their bodies had already betrayed them. That's what made the scene so calm. We caught him about a week later because he reused paperwork. One alias appeared on 2 unrelated service records tied to 2 different victims, and that was enough. His real name was Martin Hale. No violent history, no criminal flags, no psychological evaluations that would have raised concern. We brought him in under the guise of a scheduled discrepancy. He came willingly. I brought him in and interviewed him alone. No one else was in the room. I turned the recorder on, and I closed the door. He sat straight-backed, hands folded, eyes steady on me. He asked if I preferred first names or last names. That was the first sign he understood the dynamic better than most suspects. I asked him if he knew why he was there. He said yes. I asked him when he realized we were close. He told me he assumed we'd been close from the beginning. He spoke about the victims clinically, not dismissively and not emotionally, as if they were simply steps in a process. He corrected me twice when I referenced dates. He remembered everything. I asked him why he chose the method he did. He didn't give me an answer immediately. Then he said something I still hear clearly to this day. He said, "Because they gave me permission." I asked him to explain. He said they opened the door, they stepped back, and they listened. He said compliance was the point. I asked him if they knew what was happening. He said yes, eventually. He described the moment awareness set in. Not graphically, precisely. Changes in breathing, muscle tension, eye focus. He said that moment was the only part he cared about. Not the death, the realization. That was when I stopped the interview. He gave us a full confession. He named victims we hadn't connected yet. He explained to me how he avoided cameras, how he chose locations, and how he ensured silence. Then he asked me if I had children. I told him yes. He nodded and said, "Then you understand why control matters." But that line didn't make the report. After the conviction, I stopped trusting normal interactions. I watched how people deferred, how often doors opened without question, how easily authority is accepted when it's calm. I realized the job had changed me in a way I couldn't undo. So I left. I'm telling you this because the danger isn't loud. It doesn't break doors. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. Sometimes, it waits for you to be polite. That's what that case taught me. And that's what I never put in the report. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing for more narrations like this one. We recently reached 50 subscribers, so I want to thank you all for the support. I'm looking forward to uploading more and sharing your own true stories in the near future. Until next time, keep the lights on, and remember, there are monsters among us.